うちの事務所からアイドルデビューしてください。
アイドル
Why, yes, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Johnny Kitagawa. So is that a yes? We opened this week with, what did I say last week about the Boom Boonja reporter lady? Like, maybe she'll write an article or something since she did hear about them, because otherwise this would have been a completely pointless cameo. Well, okay, credit where it's due, they actually did follow up on that. Granted, I do find it rather ridiculous that there's only now a news report about this monster, and the possibility that the idol Precure were fighting it. Then again, it's not as though most people just have a camera handy all the time. Oh wait, hold on, I just want to scan this QR code. Also, I just remembered, but wasn't Tsukyun Kiss's debut live stream, so why didn't that start up like any conversations? Well, anyway, I think this also was kinda meant to justify the plot of this episode, even though I don't think it'll quite pull it off, but we'll get more into that in just a bit. Anyway, after singing a little bit, Uta ended up attracting the attention of a not at all shady producer. No, seriously, they not only tried to make this guy turn out to be good, but also a sympathetic person, which, oh boy, do I have a few issues about that. But again, let's not rush into things just yet, and instead point out one of the most obvious issues here, which even Uta ended up lampshading.
キュアアイドルでアイドルプリキュアで桜歌がアイドルって
Yeah, it's almost as if this episode's plot makes no goddamn sense, especially this late into the show. Like, seriously, why would all the Cures ask the girl who's literally called Cure Idol if she wants to be an idol, especially when both she and them have already sold a ton of merch, created a massive social following, and even done a full-blown concert? In fact, why are they having Uta admire Kaito over spraying a ton of Kiakara when they've been doing that over the course of this entire series? What do you mean it's one step forward for her? You've all already performed on a big stage already!
It just don't add up!
My god, this episode's barely started, and yet the plot is falling apart faster than an idol's career after they turn 18. Alright, for the sake of my sanity, let's try to be charitable here and pretend like this plot makes some sort of sense. Like, let's say Uta wanted to become an idol under a true identity rather than that of Cure Idol. I don't know why she would want to do that when she could probably spread a lot more Kiakara as a Precure with a convenient alias no less. But okay, let's say that she wants an idol career after being a Precure. Or hell, maybe they even want to reduce all of their non-superheroine related Precure activities after that article was written about them. That might make sense, though the characters themselves don't really point this out, so I'm actually kind of headcanoning here, and yeah, it still doesn't make a lot of sense.
田中も応援してたメロ
Bullshit! 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 Actually, remember this point for later, as I'll provide some theories at the end. Anyway, Uta accepted the idol offer, with her parents being way too approving of it, but okay, maybe I'm just being paranoid. I mean, it's not as though this guy has done anything manipulative or outright morally wrong, like...
よろしく
No! 歌はno!
Yeah, I'm just gonna call this guy Kitagawa. Yeah, I know they're gonna reveal his name at the end, but he's just a Kitagawa to me. I mean, sure, he tries to justify it by claiming it's to prevent her from straining her voice, but dude, it's her private life. You have absolutely no right to tell the adolescent girl how and when she should talk, and god, just saying that out loud makes me feel awful. Not helping matters was him trying to help Uta in the stupidest ways possible.
これでよし
Yeah, I'm sure turning this place into a giant dehydrator is gonna be good for everyone. Isn't that right, buddy? Want a sip? Oh, but it only got worse the next day, as the Precure were going to school, and Uta almost broke out into another song when...
歌はno!
社長さん
やはりビューティフルな歌声
よし警察わかった
Like, the writers had to be aware that they made this guy into a total creep, right? Because he was legit stressing out Uta to the point that she could sing for her friends who were in distress. On that note, though, we did get one of the few redeeming qualities of this episode, with us finally seeing civilians reacting to the crap going on around them in the show. Yes, again, it's really late into the show for these sorts of reactions, but it does justify why the Precure would try to keep this stuff on the down low, even if it is a bit of a fool's errand. It also gave the fairies a good moment by using the fact that they didn't look like middle school girls, but rather adult women who could walk their kohai home with little concern. Again, it's not much, but it is the few saving graces in a sea of unpleasantness that is this episode. Anyway, Uta took a little walk to reflect on how she couldn't support her friends more because she chose to become an idol for everyone for the greater good. Now, the solution here was pretty damn obvious, but hey, why we have another guy tell Uta how she should think with Kaito?
マスクどうしたの？風邪？
Nah, that's more of an issue with her VA right now. Seriously though, we really should wish her the best, especially during a flu season post-2020. But yeah, as usual, he gave another overly flowery speech to make himself seem so deep when really he's just another shallow idol like all the rest. Really, all he needed to say was Uta should just remain true to herself and most of her problems would be solved. Well, that and avoid obviously shady assholes. Speaking of which, we got to what I find to be the most unforgivable part of this episode, trying to make Kitagawa sympathetic. Because as it turned out, he was a musician who ended up botching up his whole career by wrecking his vocal cords at the worst time. Thus, he didn't want another talented musician like Uta to experience what he did. Aw, that still does make up for the fact that you manipulated and stalked a teenage girl. Screw you, asshole. Like seriously, he's basically trying to live vicariously through Ta, and we're supposed to see this asshole as a good person?
だから時が来るまで大切に喉を守ってほしい。
Nope, nope, stop talking, go to jail.
Oh!
Yeah, let's just move on to this guy becoming the victim of the week so I can at least enjoy watching him suffer on a loop. Though, and also, Chokine was down to her last monster creating crystal, and her boss finally got around to reprimanding her.
ちょっきり犬これ以上わらわを待たせるな
Lady, you've been mostly sitting on your ass almost all year. You can wait a few more weeks. But yeah, standard last chance BS that would have mattered somewhat if these two were anything resembling actual characters, much less antagonists. The Precure engaged the monster of the week that was a dehumidifier, and Uta thankfully dropped the no singing thing when it really mattered.
That's a penis.
But yeah, that was probably the most notable part of this fight, as I think they spent most of the animation budget last week, and for a rather superfluous scene after this. Anyway, as a final Hail Mary, the monster tried to do exactly what Kitagawa did, and prevent the Precure from singing their finishers. However, Uta easily undid a little duct tape, and let out everything she wanted to say.
私やっぱり歌いたい。
Tackle did better. With that, Uta used that one power-up that has seen about as much screen time as Tegasword Akatsuki. Yeah, weirdly enough, this was just not a good season for red power-ups for whatever reason. Anyway, Uta blasted the horrible monster. No, and she also defeated the Dakranda.
アイドルスマイリングエコー。
With that, Chokine screwed up her final chance, but at least her quote-unquote death scene was appropriately kind of horrific and got some of the better animation of this episode. And with that, we ended with Uta rightfully turning down Kitagawa as he shared his backstory that doesn't at all justify the fact that he was a total creep, and Kokoro remembered that he was formerly a famous musician and now rightfully a has-been. This is an episode that honestly kind of pisses me off. Like, it's one thing if it's a weak story, which I'm actually kind of used to with this show at this point. It's a whole other thing when things become morally reprehensible for me. Worst of all is that there are some pretty easy fixes to this that I think they actually actively avoided taking. This episode suffers from two major problems in my opinion. First, we're getting a lot of this stuff way too late into the show's run. As I said, by this point, the Precure have pretty much done everything an idol could ever hope to accomplish in their career. Much of it was of course thanks to Best Boy Tanaka, who suspiciously was absent from this episode, as if it hadn't been written with him in mind. Yeah, I believe wholeheartedly that this was originally an early episode before his debut. It would explain why Uta was trying to decide on whether or not to pursue this whole idol thing, which she was hesitant of at the beginning of the series. However, because a certain someone's schedule was limited, I guess they initially canned this episode, only to dig it out of the trash when they realized that they were short on Uta-centric episodes, and brought it back at the tail end of the show, in spite of how little sense it made in this continuity. That said, another more engraved issue with this episode was making Kitagawa a sympathetic character in spite of how much of a creepy manipulator he ended up being. Personally, I think they were going to make him a more unforgivable monster, if only to layer contrast with Tanaka, to prove the point that if you are going into the idol industry, you should at least find a trustworthy company. But, as we've seen throughout the series, they've actually gone out of their way to outright romanticize the idol industry as much as possible, and thus force the writers to lighten the story as much. That's at least what I want to believe, as I think Akiko Inoue should know better than this, especially after this year when a shitty idol company pretty much ruined her Super Sentai. But I digress. Because of these two major flaws, I just cannot forgive how awful an episode this was overall. Its story made no sense, and it didn't even have the courage to say anything truly bad about the idol industry. Sure, there were a few interesting new developments here and there, but considering how late they came into the show, like an idol who entered the industry way too late in life, it's all kind of too little, too late. Thank you for watching me crash out over the end of this series. As I said, I don't normally do this with other shows, as currently I think I'm watching a lot of good stuff to balance out stuff like this. So, look forward to Princession tomorrow. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and if you excuse me, I'm gonna go take a shower. Ugh.